this the reading room?
Yes, I'm Saad Manzoor.
And I'm Travis Howard.
This is Reading Room Talk. Thank you for pressing play.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome. We continue back in Cincinnati.
Cincy in the
And,
building.
well, I have to say, this podcast wouldn't even, actually exist if it wasn't for this guest right here.
Exactly.
Mohammed Fadlalla. He's the one that introduced me and Travis, actually, before we even, were at the same place. So big shout out to Mo already. But
for sure.
Mo, how are you? Welcome.
I'm good. I'm honored to hear that you guys met through me. I figured you guys met through work a little bit, but I think try to get you guys together.
No, you're the reason.
For sure.
You're the reason. You're the connect. You're the distro for sure.
No, it worked out beautifully. I mean, somehow, the way the world works, you guys both landed in the same area. You guys both distinguished radiologists, so I felt like it was a good match, and the fruits of that are very evident right now. This podcast is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it. And like you said, we're radiologists, but we like to talk to real doctors, and you're like a real doctor.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
real to the nth degree. I can't wait
for real.
to dive in.
Mr. Worldwide right here. So let's start with this question. Take us back to med school. What was your toughest class or rotation in medical school?
Toughest class or rotation. So probably the one I struggled with was like this little mini class, and I know you know Travis. We had to do embryology.
Oh God!
And embryology was really tough for me to put together.
For sure.
I even felt like why are we doing this? Why are we learning this? But yeah, no, I really struggled with embryology.
Man, and they tried to make it relevant, right? Oh, at this stage of development,
they really did.
You can have this condition or that condition, and it's an arrest in this sort of, and you're like, what? But I'm with you on that.
It was to the point where I was advising. So I got to second year, and I was advising a first year. Look, don't spend any hours studying embryology because it's a complete waste. And the person I happened to tell that to ended up going to OBGYN, and she was like very upset with me because it did turn out pretty relevant
that she needed to. This is a classic story. I love
that she needed to know it. But pretty much if she was anybody else, that advice would have been okay.
Oh my God, that's so good. I was gonna say, med students, you know how we are. So she probably was like, "I'm doing OB." Right when you said it, she was like, "I'm doing OB."
But I also found that actually third year in general, I found to be a bit of a struggle for me.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the first 2 years. Strangely, I just liked the classroom learning. I just liked learning the subject matter, and then I just felt like third year it was hard for me to figure out my role, find my place. I felt like whether I was there or not, it didn't really matter. I was seeing patients and 5, and the intern was seeing them at 5:30, and it's like, what am I doing here if you're just going to do the same thing? So there was a performative element to third year too, which I never could really kind of embrace or something. I don't know. But
that's real. You know what? You had too much perspective. Like that's what it was.
I don't know, but I just felt out of place as a third year. But you go through the rotations, you take from them what you get out, and then I think fourth year I really enjoyed a lot more being an acting intern and actually having real responsibility and but I struggled with third year to be honest.
Yeah, I can relate too, because you're just trying to settle in a group of people that you may or may not know, all these team dynamics, and and you're trying to learn the material, and you're seeing stuff that you've never seen before. So more than just learning medicine, it's a lot of the stuff that you have to take classes for when you get into your job, team building and learning, leadership skills and all these things that you don't know anything about that stuff at that.
Exactly.
But
and and the cast is constantly changing. You get on a rotation, and then your intern the first week or two is gone, and someone else comes.
Right.
And, there's a resident, then there's a new attending, and you can never get like a routine or like a vibe on what's going on. So it's
Yeah.
tough. And then in the end, like they're grading you, and like some of them like saw you in the beginning when you were like didn't know what you were doing. Other people saw you at the end. Maybe you were
Oh,
like already
so
jaded at
stressful.
that point.
Yeah,
And
Like
some of you are grading you, and you don't even feel like they know what they're talking about, and it's like,
no, not at all.
yeah,
preach.
so it was an interesting year, but in the end,
Oh,
you try all the different flavors, and yeah, that so yes, it serves its purpose more or less.
It does.
yeah.
It does. I think more than anything, I think you just got to kind of get the objective information. Like, what time do people show up? What time do they leave? Are they happy? Are they not happy? Things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly.
I think that was the most important thing for me during third year. Is let me see exactly what's going on here. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
yeah,
one of the
it's rough.
best pieces of advice is that one of the, once somebody told me once, showing up is half the battle. If you
It
just
really is.
show up,
Mm.
and I was like, what do you mean? I can't just show up. I got to know the syllabus. I got to know this. I got to know everything. If they ask me a question, I got to be able to answer it. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes that's impossible. So just showing up,
Mm.
you could just get your butt up and get there and be there. That's half the battle. So,
Oh, it
Yeah.
really is. Yeah, and let's get in there, get your 6 files, get out. That's it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
exactly right, man. So, but tell us, so you're where you're from, where your family's from, and tell us your
Yeah,
big Northeast Ohio connection right here.
yeah, for sure. So I'm Sudanese. I was actually born in the country of Sudan, very far, far away. But I emigrated when I was about 6 weeks old to Ohio. So more or less Ohio and all my life. I grew up in Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
Um, made way to the University of Chicago for undergrad, and then
Oh wait.
found myself.
We're not gonna bypass that part. So you went to University of Chicago. That's a big deal. How did you get
Absolutely.
to University of
I did.
Chicago? How did that work
I
out for you? To tell us about your Pele skills as well, please.
I so I appreciate it, but I basically kind of junior, senior year of high school is when you start to look for colleges, and my dad more or less. I think at that point we printed because I don't think we just scrolled on your website or anything. He printed like the top colleges, and we
Yeah.
just went through which ones one by one he wanted me to apply to. And I had taken a field trip to New York City when I was in high school, and I really loved the feel of the big city. And I saw, Chicago is a big city. It's ranked really highly academically, and
Mhm.
I had known it was like a Division III athletic school, and I felt like I was a pretty decent soccer player at the time in high school. I felt
Yes.
like there was a chance that I could possibly make the team. So kind of putting those factors together, I decided, let me just really apply to University of Chicago and see what happens. So I applied actually
Nice.
early action, got in. I still remember the day I got the news was in the middle of January, and my mom was picking me up from school, and she was so happy, and I had gotten in, and I had a game that night. So
That's amazing.
it was a really good feeling, a basketball game that night. But yeah, I
Wow.
went there. I was able to walk onto the soccer team, played for a bit before I
Nice.
realized um, I wasn't able to kind of keep up my grades and all the extracurriculars. But
Mhm.
incredible undergrad experience. Made a bunch of lifelong friends there. Probably
So,
the
yes.
most intellectually challenging stage of my educational career. I mean, I'd never been around so many people who I would consider to be, quite brilliant.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
was taking some of these upper level chemistry courses that I think if I was in those lectures for 100 years, I wouldn't really grasp the material correctly.
But you
But
showed up.
I think I
There
showed
you
up.
go.
I got my 6 files.
Yeah.
And no, it was a good experience. I did a chemistry degree, and
Nice.
I could barely tell you the difference between a covalent bond and whatever other kind of bond there is. But
Hey, no cussing. No cussing on the podcast. No cussing.
but no, it was a great experience, and I feel very blessed to have been able to go there, and Um,
That's awesome. No, that's really
yeah,
good. And to leave
yeah,
home and to go to a new place like that, that's amazing. So
yeah. I have a funny, a bit of an immigrant story. I got in, I was getting ready to go, and my dad, I think my dad was feeling like he was, being very like uh, generous, or he was like, Mom, you're an adult now, you're going to university. You should feel like you can study, whatever you want, study anything you want, as long as it's one of the hard sciences, which at Chicago, which at Chicago more or less was math, physics, chemistry, biology. So,
wow, that's it.
so I had a lot of options,
Yeah,
but
right.
Oh, that's so funny. It's
yeah.
so true, man. My parents said the same thing. They were like, I just remember being at like I think I remember being at like grocery store with my dad when I was like really young. I told him I wanted to be an architect, and he like just didn't talk to me for like a month. And
Oh my
I just
God.
remember
Yeah.
I just remember like trying to like we were like paying for groceries or something, and then he like paid for the groceries. Then he looked at me and he was like, "Architects can't buy groceries." I was like,
Are you
"What?"
serious?
It's a different way of seeing
It
the
really
world,
is.
I think.
It really is. It's so funny.
Yeah.
You had
So good.
options, but you didn't have options.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No,
exactly.
I had all
Good
the
on.
options in the world, but in the end, for me, it's worked out. Options, no options. In the end, I think it's always worked out. So
Yeah, no, that it really does, and it also like it sounds like it kind of prepared you for like the next step in your process. Can you describe what you did after undergrad?
yeah, yeah. So after undergrad, I had kind of decided to go into medicine a little late, so I had missed the application cycle. So I had to figure out what to do kind of for a year while I applied to med school.
Hmm.
So I got a job in a lab in the Cleveland Clinic.
Oh yeah.
And full disclosure, this is actually kind of where when I actually met Saad, was in that year playing basketball at
Oh
Cases
yeah.
Rec Center.
At
Yeah.
the Veal,
So
shout out.
at Veal, yeah.
Yes.
So I'd finish my work days at the lab and go to the basketball court, and Saad would be playing with all his with med school classmates, and I'd hop on, and as it turned out, Saad kind of had his family knew my family. I think most Sudanese families more or less know each other, and he
Yeah.
had even, I think, come to my house in Cleveland, but we had
Yep.
never met until we played basketball together. So
That's exactly right. And I think and our dads went to school together in Sudan
yeah,
too. So crazy.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
crazy how it works out. So
What school did your dads go to?
University of Khartoum, UK.
yeah,
All right.
the
All
original
right.
UK, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
no, it's
cool, man.
because it's
yeah,
funny because like I think like a lot of immigrant families have a similar story where like these people like our parents in Sudan had to like study so hard to even get into this university, and then like they have to fight for the scholarship to come to America degree. So I think it kind of gives us like a perspective on like you're gonna have to work hard, and we go back to we see what's going on in countries as well, which kind of gives you extra motivation as well, of course. So
yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but from there
And then
you
and then they always have this idea that and it justifiable, they left everything, our parents, they left everything. They left their families, they left decades of being around
exactly.
their own parents
Hmm.
to come to like a foreign land
Hmm.
to give their kids an opportunity that really we wouldn't have had if we stayed,
Exactly.
if they stayed. So
Exactly.
really, it's not so overt. Maybe there's some overt, some covert kind of pressure to like make sure that you don't waste their life, or
Oh,
you
well.
really kind of make
Yeah.
good on what their dreams of you were, because how much they sacrificed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And like even though it's like as big as a deal as it is for you to get into University of Chicago, it's a bigger deal for your parents. Like
Yeah,
this is why we did it. Like this is why we tried to
right.
this.
Yeah.
That's
So
exactly right.
how do you so you mentioned a couple of things that I don't want to skip over. During your time at University of Chicago, you were an athlete, you were a student athlete. Talk a bit about that, how difficult that was, and how you made a decision to sort of leave soccer where it was.
So it was extremely difficult because soccer was such a massive part of my life. I mean, I played all through high school, and it was definitely a passion of mine. And I wasn't recruited, so first week of orientation, you try out. It's a bunch of guys, and you're competing with a bunch of guys, and then you earn a spot on the spring team, a few
Wow.
of the guys. And
Mhm.
then among those who made the spring team, you earn your spot again onto the varsity team for the next fall. So kind of, it was a lot of work. My first summer I spent at the university with the team. So um, to me, I felt like it was just a really massive accomplishment, achievement. I was very proud of it. It was
Oh
something that,
yeah,
Absolutely.
for
that
sure, man.
I really had to work for and earn. And then the season starts, and it's my sophomore year. I'm in OChem. I'm
Mhm.
taking these really difficult
Yes.
classes,
Yeah.
At the University of
and
Chicago.
at the University of Chicago. And I remember this day. It was, we had, I think, 2 hours of like gym work in the
Mm.
morning, then 2 or 2.5 hour practice in the afternoon, and then we had like another hour film session. And
Wow.
I'm calculating in my head. I mean, that's 6 hours on soccer when I have organic chem tests and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was at that point I made the decision that I just was not able to kind of put it all together. And
Yeah.
I took the difficult decision to um, difficult for me to just sacrifice soccer, because ultimately I was there to perform in school academically, and I needed that time to put into my studies.
Well, I gotta say, man, it took some strength to make the team. Took some strength to be able to let go of something that you worked so hard to achieve. Um,
Absolutely.
but you had to do what you had to do. So
Right.
to be a student athlete, to be a physician, to whatever graduate degree program you want to get to, it's something. It's sometimes very hard to make that call and balance everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Like, I mean, I was gonna say, I feel like, I mean, two things. I think one thing, the fact that you like, put your mind to making the team and made the team, that's a major accomplishment. That'll give you confidence for like anything you do in life, which is great.
absolutely.
And then also on the flip side is like, like where I went to undergrad, like, the people who are on, playing sports were like on scholarship. So like for them, it was a tough decision where they had to like, they quit the sport, then they have to like give up their scholarship. So at least you're in a
Yeah.
position where like, you wouldn't necessarily have to like give up, money to like continue with school. So,
No,
like
for
at least you don't
sure.
have like,
Yeah.
those type. You gotta
No,
just
Right.
take the
definitely.
situation. Like it could always be worse, always be better. You just do the best you can. So,
Yeah.
but you
No,
made it work for
absolutely
yourself.
right.
Definitely
Yeah.
made it work for
Yeah.
yourself, and you ended up at the HBCU, University of Cincinnati.
Yeah. 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 So after that year at the Cleveland Clinic, working in a lab, fantastic experience. I had a great postdoc, Mahfouz Haq. I want to shout him out. One of the
Shout
guys who,
out.
for sure, in my story and in stories in general, I think there's like guiding lights, light posts, people along the way who kind of really help move you forward. And he definitely is someone that did that for me. But anyway, yeah, I applied. We're blessed in Ohio. We have many, many state schools
Yeah.
Yes.
to be able to choose from. So, of course, you apply many places, and then you get accepted to very few places. And I was very fortunate to be able to get accepted to Cincinnati, where I
Yeah.
was able to attend, yeah, what seems to be an HBCU.
So good.
Some
I love it,
selection
man.
bias there.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
As long as you
man.
feel that way, it's the most important thing.
Listen, we had
Yeah.
a beautiful thing there.
Oh, it
Great
Absolutely.
was.
class, man.
I had an incredible medical school experience, and I really feel sorry for anybody who didn't, or who for people who didn't have a great experience.
Hmm.
I was able to attend with a childhood friend of mine, Hisham. I know you know Hisham,
Yeah.
Travis,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Hisham Mustafa. We grew up together way back in the day in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
We went to school together. We roomed together all 4 years.
That's awesome.
Met many other guys, Travis, Corey, the gang, Tess, my other roommate. So
Ooh.
I think incredible environment to learn, incredible environment to thrive. Um,
Sounds
Great
like it.
classmates. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
awesome. I know. I actually want you to like. I want to ask you if you'd be willing to share the story about you guys not having heating in Cincinnati in the winter.
Now,
um, so me, Hisham, and Tess, we how do I say? We're very frugal. We were
Yes.
definitely very, very, very frugal as students. Bless our parents. We're not, from the richest, but anyway, we're very frugal. So, um, second year, Tess found us this house on Euclid, not far from the school,
oh
but
yeah,
rough. This street was rough, and
it
this house
was
was
rough.
rough.
Oh yeah.
Um, but each of our rent was 200 some dollars a month. So each room, I mean, it was very cheap. And summertime rolls through, it's good. House is good. Fall, it's good. Winter, it was gonna cost like $500 a month to heat this house because not one window shut fully, not one door shut fully. There was probably cracks and holes in the walls. So we
Definitely.
decided that we were just not gonna turn the heat on.
Oh my.
I, I yeah, I still don't know how we survived. Dead of winter, thermals, sweatpants, socks, sweatshirt, hoodie, shirt, coat, scarf, I promise you, this is not an exaggeration. We would spend all day at the university studying because there was heat at the university. we we would come home. We would come home. We'd come home, drink some water, gear up, and just go to sleep. Wake up at the crack of dawn and get to the university. There was a sheet of ice, frozen on the inside of the kitchen of the
That's
kitchen
amazing.
window all summer that never melted until until the springtime came.
Oh no.
I love it.
So
You
this
guys are in an igloo for real.
this was second year, but third year we decided that was unacceptable even to us.
You don't want to
So
run
we
that
find
back.
ourselves a nice little spot with heating in a different area. But
You could have.
yeah,
That's amazing.
Oh man,
But you guys are so
go.
determined.
Yeah.
we, I think when you're, I don't know how old we're, 25, 26, yeah, you don't have your adult brain yet. I think you're still kind of like I don't know
Yeah.
what we were thinking, but
You
yeah.
save
No,
you
I think
save
you.
some
I was
money.
gonna say. I feel like you made the correct calculations. You're like, we're only be home for 5 hours a day. You
And
know.
and we were thinking, probably this will be a good story for a podcast in 15
Yes.
years. So
Exactly. Oh man, see, you guys are forward thinkers. I love it.
Man, I can't believe
yeah,
it's been that long.
Oh, I love it. Oh, it's so funny,
yeah.
man. But so tell us. So you're finishing up, and what did you decide to apply for residency?
Yeah, so here's another. I live life in a very non-calculated way. I think I get this from my dad also, I think. But so I get through third year. And I was really I had a fantastic experience with several of the departments, but really what stood out to me was some of the surgeons. So I
Hmm.
don't know if you remember Dr. Fisher, Travis,
Oh yeah.
just incredible teacher,
Hmm.
great surgeon, and then some others that I had worked with. So by then I decided I want to do general surgery. Um, I did
Nice.
my AIs in general surgery, and they were tough, but you get through them, and they're great. So yeah, I basically apply for general surgery,
Hmm.
interview, and then I end up at a program that I really was excited to go to. I ended up at George Washington in Washington D.C.
Hmm.
Interviewed there. Yeah, I love the city, and yeah, and on I went. So um, what's interesting and maybe a bit of foreshadowing, but it was springtime of a fourth year, and we're just wrapping up. We're doing electives, and I ended up doing, I think it was maybe even 2 weeks of a hospitalist elective at UC. And I ended up working with just a couple of these hospitalists, one week, one another week.
Nice.
And somehow I'm thinking, wow, these guys seem to have won the lottery. This guys, they just work 1 week, they're off 1 week. This guy's like, yeah, getting paid a full-time salary, but he's doing an MBA because of all the free time he has. And
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
yeah, I didn't consciously file anything away, but I think at the time I was like, hey, these guys look happy. These guys look good. So, but yeah, but I had just done it because I said, let me just get a little bit more medicine experience before I head off to surgery and then never do medicine again.
Well, it's funny, man, when you have those rotations where the people seem happy and you get along with them, it sits with you. It definitely, it's hard to shake.
It is, and even if you shake it, you know, it doesn't. You can't shake it out of you.
No.
It's in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
such a good way to
You
put
can
it.
reference it for sure. Like
Yeah.
on those bad days, you're like, man,
Yeah.
they were really happy. I was really happy on that rotation. What am I doing here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
so
great.
so I guess moving on, I start I start surgery at GW, and it's fine, it's tough, it's like any residency, and I get to like trauma in the fall, and I'm like
Mm.
you know, starting my rounds at like 3:45 in the morning,
Yeah.
and kind of getting beat down a little bit.
A little.
And by like November, I'm like, okay, you know, I I don't know what this is, but this is not what I want to do. I'm not enjoying it.
Mm,
Mhm.
Let me kind of step back a little bit. I said, okay, let me finish this first year. Um, see how the rest of this year goes. Don't do anything kind of major at this point. The year proceeds and things get a little better, but I get through first year and it's okay. It's fine. I start second year, and then maybe I was thinking second year should be a lot better than first year. I don't know, but I felt that second year was kind of the same. And just looking forward, I just felt like maybe, this isn't something I want to do. I don't necessarily want to be the busiest service in the hospital. I didn't feel like there was a good work-life balance. I even felt kind of moving forward in the career,
Mhm.
kind of doing the same few cases over and over again wasn't for me. So yeah, I think at that point I had decided it just wasn't for me. And then, this is, I guess, Saad kind of comes into the story where I remember we speaking with Saad a few times about this, and just kind of getting some advice, some sage advice from him. And I think he told me, or you told me, Saad, to just email the program director at GW, the medicine program director, and just see what's up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I had just decided, yeah, surgery wasn't for me. Um, yeah, I think in my head I considered a little bit, maybe ER, maybe peds, but I think I knew that if it wasn't going to be surgery, it was going to be internal medicine for me.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
always wanted something very broad and general. So I emailed Dr. Gigi El Bayoumi,
Got it.
one of the standout people in my life.
Mhm.
Uh, I said, I'm a surgery resident. I'm thinking of switching to internal medicine. Can I sit with you? And I said, yeah. I scheduled a time and I sat with her. Just kind of told her a little bit about myself. And, I was thinking she would give me advice on how to apply, what to do. And she basically just asked me, well, do you want to just join our program? And I almost like fell out of the chair in her office.
Oh,
I said,
wow.
I could just do that. She's like, well, you have to get permission from the surgery department. I said, yes, I want to join your program. Of course, I would want to join your program. So I spoke to the surgery department, and they said, you know, hang with us until we're able to find a PGY2 to replace you, just so it doesn't kind of squeeze our department. And to me, I felt like that was extremely fair. So I
Yeah.
stayed on with the surgery department for another 2.5-ish months, kind of as a lame duck. But eventually they brought somebody, and I was able to switch to internal medicine.
That's great,
Um,
Mo. I mean, one thing I'd like to highlight though about your journey is that you were never afraid to change directions, right? You
Yeah.
were,
mm,
and I come across a lot of folks maybe on Twitter that are struggling with the 24-hour shifts. They're struggling with this, what you're compensated for the time and the effort that you put in. And they question whether or not the specialty is that they've chosen is for them. Do you think, and I know this is kind of a heavy question and maybe a little bit controversial, do you feel like the work hour requirements or the heavy burden that residents are faced with might have had an impact on your decision?
I think no question, it was among the factors. I mean, it was many factors, and that was certainly one of them. I think beyond necessarily workload and work hours, for me at least, I can only speak for me. It's a sense of like, um, you, at least I'm always worried of doing harm, and I
Mm,
know that if I'm overloaded.
yeah.
Um, it's hard for me to escape the fear that I could be kind of doing harm or not doing right by
Wow.
people who are sick and vulnerable. So
Mhm.
I think uh, the constellation of factors that added up to that feeling, I think, include some of that work hour stuff as well.
Hmm.
Um, and then it was a sense of career wise. I just, for me personally, I just felt like in surgery, you kind of find that you just specialize and you end up kind of doing kind of your limited array of cases,
Hmm.
and that's kind of what you do. So
Mhm.
you're no longer this kind of broad general doc, and even in medicine, even in many fields, you do find a lot of specialization, but I always really wanted to stay true to a broad practice base, a broad knowledge base, and that's something that um, is still is true today to me today in my career. So,
It
but
makes sense.
but
Um,
yeah,
Speaking of abroad, I think this is an excellent transition because now I feel like kind of like I've been watching the Magic Johnson winning time.
mm,
Like I feel
hmm
like you got the ball and you just got unlocked. So I feel like you switching to internal medicine just unlocked you. So can you tell us about your Doctors Without Borders situation that you have
yeah,
going on now? And tell us
yeah.
all the places
So
you've been and everything you've been doing.
yeah, so I've been very blessed. I think from when I first sort of decided I wanted to get into medicine, one of the very powerful drivers for me was the idea that doctors can be very needed in
Mhm.
places that that are without.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
um, globally, there's so much need out there, and I think that we're able to make a tremendous impact. So fast forward, I've been a hospitalist at University of Cincinnati for about 4 years, and not that I didn't love it, not that I was bored or anything, but I felt like my life circumstances at the time
Hmm.
were ripe for me kind of making this like now or never move to really pursue global health
Hmm.
in a very serious way.
Yeah.
I did a couple of volunteer trips to Greece to help out with the refugee crisis
Hmm.
back in my first couple of years as an attending in 2015, 16, and that really whet my appetite for this kind of work. So I finally put together an application sometime around 2018-ish, 2019, went through the process, and then got accepted into the Doctors Without Borders pool.
Nice.
And by February 2020, I was sent out on my first assignment to kind of lead uh, medical teams in taking care of drug-resistant tuberculosis patients in Uzbekistan.
Oh wow.
Right.
So yeah,
That's
And
so
again,
that
wonderful, man.
this is February 2020.
to February 2020. So about about 5 weeks after I landed, or 6 weeks after I landed, the country went on lockdown, and the
Okay.
world had changed, and I was in lockdown in Uzbekistan, and
Wow.
that came with a whole set of challenges and issues. Uh, but
But, but can you go like
you
I guess can you give some specifics about the people that you were there with? Because it's not because you from it's you and people from all around the world, right? Like not just you by
yeah,
yourself, obviously.
no,
So.
no, absolutely. It's a whole. So everywhere where Doctors Without Borders works, they set up a whole apparatus and mission to kind of facilitate the basically the medical activities to really flourish. So
Hmm.
it was a team from all over the world with nurses, psychologists, um, program managers, program coordinators,
Hmm.
logisticians, HR people, finance people, all to kind of facilitate our work, which was to treat drug-resistant tuberculosis patients in the western state of Uzbekistan called Karakulpakstan. So our roster of patients was basically anybody in that state who turned positive for drug-resistant tuberculosis.
Hmm.
So I was in charge of several of the kind of outer counties of that state, and we would take trips with my staff, doctors, nurses, counselors, driver
Wow.
would take us, and translators, and we would go post up in that county for 3-4 days, see the different patients in those clinics, round on them in their homes, and if there was a hospital in that state, in that county, we'd go visit that hospital and just see the patients, make medication adjustments, start and stop regimens, really assess their conditions, and that's how we were performing our kind of task. Um,
That's
Very
crazy.
challenging personally because I don't remember having seen, maybe I had seen one drug-resistant tuberculosis patient in my career up until that point. So
Hmm.
the first, you know, couple of maybe 4 or 6 weeks was just really about reading and learning all I could about tuberculosis and drug-resistant tuberculosis. But
Wow.
yeah, but after you kind of get the hang of it and you start to see patients, you start to really feel like you're, starting to make an impact and really getting a sense of how to, use these drugs and these treatment regimens.
Yeah.
Wow.
In all your global health experience, what can you nail down some of the most rewarding experiences that you've had? Things that you've seen and that inspire you to this day.
Absolutely. So my second experience, I was the medical activity manager in a refugee camp hospital in Eastern Sudan, and most of the admitted patients were either Sudanese or Ethiopians who were fleeing a war. And at the time we were there, it was a rainy season, which basically means kind of all your tropical disease uh,
Wow.
increases, your incidences increase. So, rush of malaria, diarrheal illnesses,
Hmm.
snake bites, leishmaniasis, and it was um, my second last day. We had admitted a young girl. I think she was maybe 9, 10 years old, um, in incredibly poor condition. I think she ended up having severe malaria. Her hemoglobin was, I think, 3.
Oh
Her
wow.
blood
Wow.
glucose was in the tank, uh, severe kind of septic. And I remember me and I had assigned one doctor to kind of just sit at her bedside, and we basically um, stayed with her throughout more or less most of the day, checking her sugar, giving her glucose, making sure she was getting her malaria meds kind of on time, resuscitating her, giving her fluids. And
Wow.
by some miracle, by the next morning, she started to kind of show evidence of recovery.
Mm.
And she was actually maybe the first or second patient we transfused at that hospital. So also in my last week there, we were able to set up blood transfusion in this refugee camp hospital. So
Wow,
she, I
that's so
think,
cool.
received either the first or second transfusion. And then I think my mission ended, but I think a week or so later, that doctor who I sat with sent me a picture of her and her family, and she was getting discharged.
Oh wow, that's
And on the
amazing.
way
That's
on the way
great.
in, I I was certain that there was no hope for her. But you know, it just goes to show that in a place like that, if you kind of put the right people and at
Mhm.
least some of the right resources, it can really be life changing. There's a girl now who really wasn't going to make it, and presumably, she has now her whole life ahead of her.
Oh, but Mo, tell me, man, you have your parents who made this tremendous sacrifice.
Yeah.
You immigrated at 6 weeks old,
Yeah.
and you climb the ranks. You're waking up at 3:45 in the morning. You're rounding.
Mhm.
You're making changes. You're figuring out life. So you
Mhm.
get to go back to the country from which you came, and you're
Yeah.
and you're doing this work. I'll go ahead and say it. I'll call it God's work,
It really is.
and you're helping these
It
people.
really is.
Tell me how that feels, man. Oh my God, this is
I-
amazing.
it's it's
It
it's
really
really
is.
it's almost impossible to say, but I will say that you feel things that you didn't even know you could. You feel like somehow you're home, even though it's a place that you've never lived. If you
Wow.
Mhm.
ask me home, I say it's Cleveland because that's where I grew up. That's where my memories are.
Mhm.
But when
Mhm.
you're back there, the way you see how people are, they remind you of your parents, they remind you
Hmm.
of
Mhm.
your family, the way they
Mhm.
embrace you. I was like the quote unquote Sudanese guy, but who's from America, but I was loved because I was
Mhm.
of them,
And
Yeah,
you came
um,
back.
that's
and you're
awesome,
back
man.
and you're kind of helping and you're doing basically what you kind of dream about doing or study
Yeah.
to do, all those years ago in second year pathology where you're learning about these weird diseases. It's like, so eventually you can treat people with them.
Yeah.
It's more
Hmm.
than like an intellectual exercise. So it's really hard to describe. I mean, it would take somebody much more eloquent and poetic and talented than me to tap into what it can really feel like. But
No, I think it
it
will.
feels amazing. I mean, it
I
feels amazing.
I have so much respect for you, man. I think it's just I'm in. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful.
It's
Yeah, I
amazing.
think it's blessing, and I'm blessed to be able to do it. I think it is a bit of a privilege as well. I
Hmm.
think you have to be of a certain status to be able to kind of give up some of like the financial amenities of working here and things like that to be able to go
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
work a little bit of yourself and things like that. But so I
Yeah.
feel very privileged and blessed to be able to do it, but it also is very rewarding personally for me to be
Oh,
able
it
to.
is. It is. And I was gonna say, can you like kind of tell us a story about you finding? Like, I guess I don't know if it was during that trip, like when you like found your dad's family and how you like met up with them.
Oh, that so I had went and seen them on vacation
Mhm.
a couple years earlier with my dad. My dad, where he grew up, was it's like to say that it's in the middle of the desert really understates what that really means. So you start in Khartoum, which is the capital of Sudan, and you get in
Uh-huh.
a Land Cruiser, and there's maybe 14 people in a 10-seat Land Cruiser, and you drive west for about 10 hours, 8 hours until the highway ends. And then you just keep going into
The
just
desert.
desert, literal
Yeah.
desert. And then the drivers somehow they're going right, they're going left, they're going up, down. I mean, somehow they know this route to get to like this place
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
completely nondescript. Um, and you're driving for about 8 more hours in the middle of the desert.
This is after the
And you
highway.
get to like, yeah, and you get to this tiny town, and where my dad's from, they're about 15 minutes out of the outskirts of this like remote town. So they're just a couple of houses
Yeah,
by
yeah.
themselves and a bunch of animals and things like that. So, I was able to go in 2018. I was about 34. I had not yet started working in MSF,
Hmm.
but really to get a picture of like kind of where you really come from and where your dad grew up.
Yeah,
He spent about half his life there, and then half the rest of his life he was kind of with us in the States. But that really kind of that puts you there, like you can't escape who you are or
Hmm.
where you're
hmm
from or what you're of.
yeah.
That's in me.
And the people you see are like your relatives. These are your cousins, your aunts, your
Your
uncles.
cousins, your first cousins, your aunts, your uncles,
Wow. Yeah.
and you're seeing them for the first time. I know people, they grew up, going to barbecues with their
Hmm.
aunts and uncles and cousins and all that. For me, they're all, theoretical,
Yeah.
until I was able to go and see everyone. And I was theoretical to them.
Hmm.
I remember, one evening I'm just sitting there with a bunch of my aunts and she was looking at me like, we're so happy you came. We didn't even know if we'd be able to talk to you because they didn't know if I would be able to speak Arabic, or they're like, we would have been happy if you could just sit there and talk, but you're actually even talking to us. And, it was just,
Yeah.
very surreal, very surreal experience.
Wow. That's amazing. And, I mean,
Absolutely.
they sacrificed a camel for you.
100% they did. So I pulled up in the Land Cruiser, and in my entire family, maybe a couple hundred people were just kind of lined up in this big semicircle waiting for me, basically.
Oh.
Because
Nice.
none of them have seen my dad's kids, because we were all raised in the States.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the Land Cruiser kind of pulled up, they they slaughtered a camel that we later had for lunch. And I went
Great.
down the line and just hugged and kissed everybody in my family, and got to my grandma, and was a very emotional embrace with my grandma and my
Welcome
uncle
home.
who had lived with us. Yeah, so it
That's
was a
correct.
very important thing for me to experience, for sure.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's the fuel. The fuel that
Yeah,
keeps you going, like, when you have the rough days, and it's all
yeah.
relative. Our rough is not their rough, So
Right,
Right.
right. You
Right.
you always have like a built-in perspective if you're able to just kind of look and see, how blessed you kind of are.
Hmm.
hmm
That yeah, it can keep you from complaining too much and.
Oh yeah, a medicine in the way it does that. When
Mm,
you're so many people, challenging situations. It's kind of a smack in the face sometimes. Like
yeah,
it's time for
yeah,
you to suck it up and keep moving. So, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, a little bit.
I could imagine, man. It's great to be able to go home and connect. I'm sure.
no,
Yeah,
that's so good. I mean, it's just there's no words for it. I mean, that's the bond you need. That's the fuel that you have, and that's what keeps you going. And you're doing like just the most amazing things. I mean, you just real quick, can you just tell us about where you were on your last mission? You were on a boat.
yeah. I was on an MSF rescue ship in the central Mediterranean. So,
Wow.
there's many refugee smuggling routes throughout the world, and probably, not probably, I think statistically the most dangerous one is the Mediterranean crossing between Libya and Italy. Um, Refugees kind of get corralled there, and in Libya are quite badly mistreated, and then they get put on these very unsuitable boats, supposedly to cross 100 or 200 miles of sea. I don't know how much it is, but really it's incredibly dangerous and deadly. So MSF, along with several other NGOs, have rescue ships that patrol those waters right off of the coast of Libya. And when we're able to see these boats that have no chance of making it, we're able to kind of send some speedboats out there to rescue the folks, bring them back to the main ship, and then we kind of take care of them, nourish them, manage them medically, um, until we're able to get them into safety, somewhere in a port of safety. Usually in Italy, but maybe other places as well. But they definitely don't get sent back to Libya. But yeah, so some interesting rescues. I mean, one that I'll never forget. We saw by accident. Several hours away, and we reach, and as we get there, this little boat, this rubber boat, was sinking, and it had 100 some people on it. So we really, I mean, I think if we got there 30 minutes to an hour later, that would have been 100 some folks who would have just drowned in the Mediterranean, as many do. But luckily, we were able to get there and bring them back into the ship and resuscitate who needed to be resuscitated and things like that.
Wow.
I mean, the lack of fear, so go get it. The like,
Yeah.
If I didn't know any better, I would think like you have a need for some adrenaline, Dr. Fadlalla.
I think ever since I retired my soccer shoes and those dog days in Chicago, I've needed to get to have something to compete for, I think.
Medicine with an edge. Yes, for sure.
maybe
so
that's
awesome.
what it is. Yeah.
Oh, hey. Yeah, man. No, you got it, man. This is
absolutely
LeBron level motivation
man.
out. Yes.
There you go, man.
Yeah, man.
The utmost. It's an honor to have you as a classmate. 2011 made it happen.
Yeah. No, it's
so proud of you,
crazy.
Very
it's crazy how the world is. Travis, I still have our picture from, I think me and you took one in graduation. I still remember my parents took it. I have it. I mean, and
nice,
who knew
man.
that how many 11 years later you'd be talking to me in a podcast. I think, I said this at the beginning, and I think, let me say it again and make sure it doesn't get cut. I think what you guys are doing is fantastic, and the motivation behind it and the execution of it. I think it's crazy that it hasn't been done before. I think it's really good of you guys to really showcase, Black doctors and people, introducing a route to a subpopulation of America that might not even see that is a route. And I think it's really important what you guys are doing, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate you, man. Appreciate superheroes like yourself coming on and actually being honest and telling their stories, and just basically giving perspective on like all the things that you can do like with this career. Like, you don't have to be boxed in. You've never been boxed in. You've always just done what you wanted. You say what you want. You do what you want. You're a superhero. So we appreciate you sitting down here with us and telling us all this game. This is all game, right? So, absolutely.
A lot of luck, and yeah, I think it's important to always never lose sight of what you want to do. You can always do what you want. You can always change. I think I've lived by that a little bit.
Oh, you have, and you just show up. Just shows up.
Yeah, it shows up.
Well, we appreciate you doing this with us, man. Thank you so much. We're gonna have you back because we need more stories. The stories.
Yes, we do.
I have plenty. I could talk and talk, but I definitely appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you.
For sure, Dr. Fadlalla. We really appreciate it, and appreciate you guys for listening. And till next time, stay low.
Bye.
To like resuscitate somebody on the speedboat because they weren't waking up.
Wow.
Oof. What was wrong with them?
A fuel inhalation. These little boats that they send them on, they're poorly manufactured. Mm-hmm. So they're on this thing for 12 hours inhaling fumes.
Oh my God.
So the whole ship was like the whole boat was 100 people that were fuel intoxicated.
That's crazy.
But this guy had it real bad. I think maybe he was maybe right next to the engine or something, but I was like 2 seconds away from needing to start CPR on him, but he
Wow.
came to just with oxygen, thank God.